Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and we're going to jump into a segment on the 55 Ford F100 chopper as we're getting a couple details wrapped up. One of the pieces that we need to get done is we need to get a fuel tank in it. We need to get it hooked up. We need to get some gas in it. So a couple weeks ago I took the fuel tank down to a radiator shop to have it all cleaned out and prepped because it was nasty and crappy, and I was hoping to use it as it was, and it wasn't usable in that condition. So to save the grief and frustration of trying to use it and filter it and just be frustrated with it, I took it down and had them clean it out. So this will probably be a pretty short video, and I'll put the tank back together, give you a peek inside if I can, and we'll put it in the truck. So let's get started. So we got the tank back. We're going to put the new sender in. Here's the sender. It's a pretty cheap looking thing, but it's not made of plastic. At least not too many pizzas are. So let's put it in and hopefully it'll work. So it comes with a gasket, and it comes with some replacement bolts, which are it's nice of them to send. We're going to use the gasket. We'll throw the bolts in the bolt bin to save for when we're in a pinch. Which you never know, it could be right around the corner. You need a handful of those bolts. But on this particular application, I'm going to use the original ones. So the original ones are right here. I'm throwing them around. Original ones are right here. We cleaned them up the other night, so we're set and we're good to go. This particular gasket and sender combination only goes in one way, so we'll check to see where the holes line up. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, looks like we got it. Righty. So we'll put a couple screws through here just to kind of hold the gasket in place. And actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put all the screws through here, because I want to put some anti-seize on the screws before I screw it into the tank. So we'll put all the screws through the O-ring gasket. And it's nice to have the gasket. I mean, at least I don't have to make one now. Totally one of those things that you're kind of always prepared to do. Some of these screws have a little more wear and tear on them, but they're still the original ones. And while it's not really that big a deal, I like it a little better. And I mean, if you're doing something like this and you have the new hardware and you feel like the new hardware either makes you feel better, or you like using the new, or you just think it's the way that you want to go, then by all means put the new in. I have lots of biases towards this old stuff. My gut feeling is that the quality of a lot of these old nuts and bolts, even though they're 65 years old, is probably still better than that crap that I'm buying in a little bag. Okay, I'm sorry, but I gotta take this made in Taiwan sticker off. It's more than I can stand to look at. Doesn't change the fact that they made it. We paid to have them do it. We can't do it here, but still, I don't have to look at it. Okay, next step. I've got some anti-seize. So this is a can of anti-seize I've had since I worked on airplanes 20 years ago. It has an unbelievably long shelf life. I also don't use enough of it. It's kind of coppery looking. I don't use enough of it to go through that container of it. That container still has probably 20% left in it. It'll probably last the rest of my life. This is great for spark plugs. In the aircraft world, you put anti-seize on all kinds of stuff when you're putting it together. Everything has anti-seize because a lot of times it's steel to aluminum, and if you don't put anti-seize on it, you won't be able to get it apart next time you service it. So that's some of the reason that it's so prevalent in the aircraft world. Okay, this only goes in one way. The holes are not evenly spaced. Bolt man tried to put me on my head, so I'm getting some screws started here. So the screws all came out of this fuel tank, so that was nice. So that's the other two tanks I have, the screws will not come out of them that way. So I'll be doing some work on it. I have to decide if I took this tank in and had it cleaned. It was $140 to have it cleaned. It was a nice tank. The last one I had done was about $100. So it's a little more than I thought it was going to be. But everything goes up over time. And I still end up with, an original tank. So I just have to decide if I want to buy an aftermarket tank for the next truck, or a plastic tank, or what I want to do. So one thing I might do on the next truck is I might fuel inject it. Do one of those fuel injection units that replace the carburetor. And if that's the case, I will probably do an aftermarket tank. That will allow me to put a fuel pump inside the tank and have it be a little tidier. So that's another thing that I'll consider as I move that project forward. Always get those nice and snug. All right, gas tank's in. I'm gonna put the nipple on for the fuel line. So this truck has had some work done on it. This is the nipple that was on the tank. And quite honestly, this would have been a steel line all the way up along the frame and around the core support to a small rubber line right before the fuel pump. But in this case, it has been replaced and it has rubber line on it. So that's all good and well. But the one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take my flaring tool. I'm going to put just a little bit of bump right here on the end so that line, once it's on and you put a clamp on it, it can't come off. So I'll do that and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So most of the stuff I do is not very tricky. And it's super basic, and this is no different. So what I'm doing is I'm doing half of the process of putting a flare on a piece of tubing. What I'm doing is I'm doing the first step, which is to roll the tube in on itself. And what that does in the flaring process is it makes it so the end of the tubing doesn't split. It basically takes the tubing that comes up like this, folds it out and rolls it in on itself, and then when you do the second part, it pinches it down and makes a nice clean flare, and you have a folded edge that doesn't split. Very important for brakes. It's called a double flare. So what we're doing, if you can see it, what we're doing is we're just doing the first part, which is gonna, usually it's just going to do the swelling and put a little bulge on the end. This is a little bit bigger tubing, so we'll make sure that it didn't just push it through. I think it did actually. Give it another. Tighten it up again. Have to be pretty, gotta get pretty tight to do this part. Do that. Okay, so it's sticking out. Stick that step one of the flaring tool in there. Try again. Okay, see if we got lucky or if we just pushed it back up. Oh, good things look like they're happening. Okay. So this is what it looks like. Can you see it? I hope so. This is what it looks like when you're all done. It's got a little bit of a swell on the end, like you would see on the end of a radiator neck, but in miniature. And now when the hose slips over it and I put a clamp on it, it won't slip off. This is what you want to do anytime you're using a piece of steel line that you made yourself and you're going to put a rubber hose on it. Now this is for, you know, fuel pressure from normally aspirated, carbureted, 4 pounds of pressure. This actually doesn't have, this really is on the suction side of the tank. It's just a habit that I got into a long time ago, and I don't like having a straight piece of tubing with a rubber hose on it. So that's kind of what that looks like. It takes 3 or 4 minutes, and it makes it for a fitting that you will never lose your hose off of. All right, here we have end of a really short segment. It's evening, and I put the gas tank in. You watch me put the sender in and get the nipple corrected on. So I didn't film it just because it's dark and kind of hard to get it sorted out, but where you can see it. But the tank's in. I used the rubber in the filler neck off of that tank. I had a couple different ones, but that one was probably as good as any of them. I had already drilled the running board with the holes for the fender, or I drilled the fender for the holes in the running board, and so that was ready to go. So I bolted that on. Running board's bolted together up against the bed. It's bolted together all along here, just like it should be. Inside, we have the sender sitting there. It looks like it's wired a little different. No surprise, aftermarket, you know, reproduction, who knows the way it's actually wired. So once I get it running and start to play with just another little bit of electrical, I will hook it up with power while the power's on and see if the fuel sender reacts when it's got some gas in it. But for now, it'll seal up, and it should work once I put some gas in it. So we'll see. We'll play with that. Fingers are crossed. Other than that, it's pretty close. I'll put some gas in it probably Saturday, and with a little bit of luck, I'll go around the block. I think it's there. I gotta bleed the brakes, but that shouldn't take very long. I had a buddy come over day before yesterday, and I was trying to get out of here to go look at a toolbox and didn't bleed the brakes, and the guy didn't show up on the toolbox. So I should have bled the brakes. That's the way the world works, that's for sure. So let's see, I'm gonna close the door. I noticed some of the shots are awfully close, and I apologize for that. So I will get just a little farther away and see if I can do a little better job of kind of showing the overall picture of the truck. It's dark out and things like that, but still kind of cool if you can see the big picture, so to speak. So that's the big picture. Truck's super dark in the front, so sorry about that. Getting the light from the shop, shining on this side. Just kind of neat to see all together. Using the other truck as a light holder. Looks pretty much like a truck. Get some brakes bled, get some gas in it, and what the heck, we'll see if we can go around the block. Thanks for joining me. This will be a pretty short one, but sometimes they are. I'm playing for Chop Shop Motors, and we'll see you in the next project.